Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Scouser Tommies. Welcome back if you've listened before, and if you've not, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get a feel for what it's like to be a Liverpool fan in and around the city by listening to some of the stuff we talk about, which may be exactly the same as what you're thinking yourself wherever you are in the world, but sometimes there might be a little bit of a difference because, you know, the sort of press don't always report things the way we are, and there's no city like Liverpool that knows that. I'm with Jay Reid today, and I think it's been a week since we last recorded, and there's been quite a bit happening since then. But I think the first question I want to ask you, Jay, is whether you got, did you get away with Mizzy Night, or with them lads who are normally scared of the dog, did they come and look for you?
No. What I did do is get an absolute army of children turn up on Halloween trick or treating. Now, last year we bought plenty of sweets last year, you know, because it was the year sort of after COVID, and you think, like, you know, people will be back to normal and the kids will be wanting the sugar supply. And we had one kid knock. And then this year we went for the same sort of estimate of sweets, and within half an hour we were empty. Gosh. I have to dig into a little chocolate supply. If any more were coming, they were getting apples and oranges, then, you know, they wouldn't have come back again, would they, next year? So, yeah, the mischief night stayed clean, but then the Halloween, I was empty of, you know, my little bars of chocolate I take to work for the week. I had to go and buy more on Tuesday. So I hope they all enjoyed it. But yeah, it's one of them. And, you know, coming up this weekend, it's Bommy Night, or Bonfire Night as people call it. But in Liverpool, it's Bommy Night. Yeah. Which I suppose it's how you are as a person. So for me, as a kid growing up, it was fun because of the fireworks and stuff. But now, yeah, in reference to having a dog, those who've got pets will probably know. Some of them are okay, but a lot of them don't like it. So it kind of involves us being curled up on the couch under a blanket and making sure he's as comfortable as he can be, because, the fireworks don't settle well with him. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's probably got a pet in that situation. So, yeah, you've got my sympathy if you are somebody with a pet over this weekend, and there's no doubt bombs that'll be going off for several hours.
Yeah, we used to have a dog when I was growing up, and she'd come and hide under my bed on Bommy Night, because, not just Bommy Night either, is it? Because it's not just one night, it's like night after night after night for a good week.
Yeah. So. Oh, they've been going off for weeks. Like, they're in shops from like early October, and, you know, when we lost, unfortunately, last weekend and Everton won, there was a few last Saturday. Sorry to drag that one up so early into the podcast, but yeah, the Blues had something to celebrate last week because, you know, we lost, and that's what their life revolves around.
They must have so much Pyro stocked up though, mustn't they? Like, they've been buying it all in bulk, and then they never get the chance to use it. I mean, there was a game at our place against them, and I can't remember what it was. I'm guessing 4 or 5 years ago when they scored, and they wouldn't have won because it was that long ago. It was in that spell where they weren't winning at all at Anfield, and they scored, and then someone let some like purple Pyro off, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Like, why? Is it provided by the council to kind of be like a neutral Pyro? But anyway,
City of Liverpool FC Pyro, they got it confused.
Yeah, I bet they were gutted after they waited like 8 years to set this thing off, and it was the wrong colour. But anyway, you mentioned it then. I suppose we've got to mention it again. Since we were last on, Liverpool had an extremely unusual game under normal circumstances, but under this year's circumstances, a kind of fairly typical game, if you like, because we played Leeds, bottom of the table, you know, in the bottom three, and we played them at home. It was a night game under floodlights, and we lost.
Yeah, we give it the big build-up, didn't we? And I think I did say last week I wouldn't be surprised if they got something. And, you know, as this season is, it went to the form book in terms of the Roy Hodgson 4 book, 4 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses that we've got now. And
God.
The mediocrity of the performance kind of led to, the outcome of the results. And it was disappointing. One thing I will touch on is the atmosphere was absolutely stinking in the ground. Like the feeling that, a night game, like we build it under the lights, Leeds who bring a colourful support, because there's topics we can get into on that one. Rowdy, loud. It had all the ingredients there, all the setup for a lively night game, and one that we'd think, we'd rise to the occasion, but sadly we never. And it comes as no surprise, but yeah, just the atmosphere in the ground. I think whether it was, Saturday night and people had sold on the tickets and second-hand stuff, I think, or people were sort of not that overly interested because it was a Saturday night game and people would rather be somewhere else. I mean, at the end of the game, I would have rather have sat up and watched Strictly Come Dancing and watched what I did on the pitch. But
yeah, and I was doing Raw. I was at home. I was doing Raw, and so I couldn't sort of leave it and watch Strictly or something instead. And I was all on my own because I had to go upstairs to watch it, because obviously they were watching Strictly or whatever they were watching. And in fact, I think there was some Grand Prix qualifying on as well. Like, there was loads of things that would have been better than watching that, but I had to watch it. I mean, I'd have even watched one of those weird sort of Discovery things that my other half watches that are like reality TV from the States. Anyway, let's not go into them.
It was just, I think, as Liverpool fans, we've sort of become a little bit, self-indulgent and think like we should be beating these teams, and we go in with a blasé attitude, and we don't sort of think we have to put 100% in as fans. But I think Tony pointed on something on your podcast that you put out on Monday. For anyone who hasn't listened to that, I know you'll be plugging later, but an early plug now is go and give that a good listen. The atmosphere around feels best when it's got that little bit of angst about it, and when there's a little bit of needle there, and the fans feed off the players feed off the fans. Yeah. But I think the blasé attitude that we've probably went in with and thinking we should just roll these over, and we never. And at the end of the day, they wanted it more. They won pretty much every second ball. They outran us, which isn't a surprise lately. And they got what they deserved. They got the 3 points, and walking away from the ground, there was a lot of discussions as you're walking down the street here, and the main sort of feeling was, well, we didn't deserve that. Like, we didn't deserve nothing from it. Like, we didn't deserve to get anything from the game. It was no surprise that they did, which is a sorry state of affairs, really, because the two teams we've lost to in the last couple of weeks, Forest and Leeds, we maybe took for granted, but in the grand scheme of things, those 6 points would probably see us a lot higher up the table than where we currently are. And going into this weekend's game against the team who are up in that echelons of the table, we probably would have been a lot closer to them. But we are where we are. You get what you deserve in this game. If you don't put the effort in, then you don't deserve to win.
No, and I know what you're saying about the thing. Like, when you walk outside the ground, you sort of walk from wherever you are. Obviously, everyone's going the opposite way to each other. You're getting through throngs and throngs of people, and you hear loads and loads of snippets, don't you, of people's opinions. But after like 5 or 10 minutes of that, you kind of get what the consensus is. And depending on what you do afterwards, like, say you go to the pub afterwards and meet up with your mates, because as I was saying with Tony the other day, and there's so much now where I used to go to the game on the KLOPP, I could arrive at a different time, so some of the mates go together, whatever, it didn't really matter. One of them had a season ticket for a bit, I never, so we had to go through different gates. But the thing is, once you're in there, you'd sit together, you'd get on with your mates, you'd have a great time. You were more extrovert because you're with your mates and so on and so forth. So that's changed, and kind of the social side of it now is a little bit like afterwards as well. So after the game, you'll go and meet your mates, usually, if you can, down in one of the pubs or wherever, talk about the game. And I think as you're sort of leaving the ground, you're thinking what you're going to say. And it's the same doing Raw in a lot of ways. As you're going through the game, you're thinking, what are we going to talk about? What kind of things can I say later on? What you're trying to take it all in and remember things. And the thing I was thinking was, as the clock was ticking down, was we don't really deserve this 1-1. We're lucky to have a 1-1, and we should come, as disappointing as it's going to be to only get a point, in a lot of ways, we should be glad we have. And then next thing you know, we didn't act like we were happy with the point. We acted like that was too much for us, and went and gave that away. And it's just bad. And I wonder whether the Saturday night atmosphere. There'll be people saying what it is, and we always sort of overanalyze things. But one of the possibilities is that when it's a Wednesday, maybe it's harder for some people to get to the game, and maybe there's more likelihood that the tickets for a midweek game are going to people who live more locally. And I'm not having a go at people who don't, but also people who maybe don't always get the chance to go to the game and really want to make the most of it. Because I don't think it's a thing about local fans being louder than non-local fans as such. I think it's more like fans who are just like, they've got to the point now where they go every time, they don't miss any games, and when they go, they're sitting there expecting to be entertained. There's not loads of people like that, but there's enough. I mean, I tend to move around the ground when I go, sit in all different places. And in all the different places, you'll come across fans like that who've been sat in that same seat for years, and they've just turned up and expecting it to be perfect every game. And it's wrong. And sometimes that attitude spreads. Sometimes it's them who are getting shouted down by others and told off for not getting part, being part of the atmosphere. But there's something weird about a Saturday night kickoff. And I don't know. I hate lunchtime Saturday kickoffs, but I'm not keen on Saturday night ones either.
No, the 5:30 is okay because, if you're lucky enough to go to a game for a 5:30 kickoff, or you're at home watching it, like for those who attend the game, like for myself, I'd say you kind of maybe you get to a local pub. There's several in the area around Anfield, and you might catch the final scores coming in the last sort of 15-20 minutes of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. If you've got a little bet on, you might be sat there sweating, waiting for a team or a result to come in. And, it sort of, get you built up in the atmosphere because, Saturday 3 o'clock football is the traditional go-to football time. And there is nothing better than a 3 o'clock kickoff, really. But if you're in and around, a local establishment and you've got something maybe riding it, or you're meeting up with people and you can discuss, if we win today, we can go there. If, the Blues have lost again, look how low down they are, or, results can sort of, spark conversation, build up your sort of anticipation for the game. So a 5:30 isn't too bad, but that 7:45 on a Saturday, I think majority of people would rather be somewhere else on a Saturday night because it's just a strange kickoff time. And night game is reserved for midweek, and that's the allure and mystique of European nights because they're under the lights for the majority of the year, and it's sort of a bit lost in the mire of the weekend because I don't know what the viewership was, but if you've got a family or you've got other things to be doing on a Saturday night, you probably would want to be doing that. Maybe that ties into the sort of damp atmosphere we had the other day. I don't know, but it's not a great kick-off time, especially on a Saturday.
But also, we can't just blame that, because I think there is that thing that sometimes there is just that complacency from fans and from players. We complain about it when it's from the players, because there's time and again you've looked at Liverpool players, and it's even on away games when the away support's always good for Liverpool. But even on away games, we've looked complacent at times, so you can't blame it all on the fans. But the truth is, you're right. If those fans want to go around calling themselves the 12th man, as we like to do, because time and again we have been the 12th man, then you've got to be the 12th man every game. You can't complain that, this fullback's not putting a shift in, or that striker's looking like he can't be bothered if you're sat there with your arms folded doing nothing. So, if you're lucky enough to get the game, get there. But I like what Tony came up with the other day as a solution to this. So you'll hear it on the podcast, but he was just saying, make sure everyone has 3 pints before they go in. It's not too much, not too little. You just warmed up, aren't you, and ready to get into things.
Yeah, it sort of, warms up the vocal cords, you could say, in one way or another. And yeah, it gets you that little bit of confidence. And I think, whether you are a drinker or not, I think anyone would be honest, if you've had a little taste for it, it does sort of, relax you slightly, bring your guard down a little bit, might just make you feel a little bit more at ease with the strangers around you. And I liked what Tony touched on in terms of, the old days where, you were able to get in nice and early and stand with your mates, where now, you might go to the ground with a car full of people, and if there's 4 or 5 of you in the car, you might be lucky if you sat next to 1 or 2 of the people and the others are dotted around the ground, and that doesn't help the atmosphere. I don't know how the club can
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Can aid that, you could say allow people to want to be able to sit together, but a seat to seat, and you'll always have the seat police who always say, well, that's my seat, I bought the ticket and you're not standing there, sort of thing. But yeah, like anyone who has got memberships to try and get tickets will know that the absolute chaos that is trying to get tickets for Liverpool these days. It's so hard. It's harder than it's ever been, and they aren't making it easy and accessible. There's things out there like a local members sale, and if you're on social media, you'll probably follow accounts if you are trying to get access to tickets and see that tickets are gone within seconds. But there's always touts who've got all the tickets. It doesn't add up, and the chances of you getting 2 tickets together is rare. So it doesn't help with the whole thing, and you could delve into a lot of theories as to what the club really wants. Do they just want people paying money through the door and they're not really bothered about anything else as long as the money is going in the coffers? It kind of feels like that sometimes, but the atmosphere, it would be helped if people could gather and be together, or have the guard down a little bit more. And I suppose the Saturday night time you would have thought led to that, but yeah, as we've touched on it probably didn't in the case of last week. Maybe it was just complacency. Had it been Manchester United rolled into town on Saturday night, I'm sure it would have been a different story. I think complacency across the whole board, the team and the fans was a large issue last week.
Yeah, and I think there'd have been a different reaction to things like that own goal. So the own goal was like a mistake. I think it wasn't even an own goal. It feels like an own goal.
It felt like it.
You sort of put it in that category of oh my God, embarrassing moments. So there's someone, whoever does the Joe Gomez, anti-Joe Gomez YouTube clips has got a nice new one for the little Arsenal there, and there's bound to be someone who does that. It was just one of those things that happens in football. Mistakes happen. His pass wasn't great. Ali slipped, which wasn't a great thing to happen, and their player was running onto it, which again wasn't a great thing to happen. These things can be avoided and so on. But I think you're right. If that had been Manchester United or City or Arsenal or someone like that we were playing, the fans would have been so instantly right, we've just conceded, loud, let's get one back. And it's not even what you're singing, it's that intensity of the noise and everything. But I mean, as I say, I wasn't watching it at the place, but it didn't sound to me like there was the same sort of intensity afterwards. It was more of a, oh no, not again.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. Joe Gomez is a bit of an enigma. I've backed the lad, and he has got ability. We've all seen that, especially in the City game. But I don't know what's happened to him over the last few years, but it does seem like he is a player who depends a lot on confidence. And if he gets, a slight mistake, he seems to wobble a lot. And we had that with Dejan Lovren for many years, and that wasn't very good. And he seems to get in his own head a little bit. And obviously the centre half position is key for us. There was a lad who come in on Wednesday night, and it was chalk and cheese in terms of what you got from the Saturday, and maybe he looked even better because of what we've had over the last couple of weeks. And I don't want to dig a player out for not being good enough, because he has got a hell of a lot more ability than most others. Or it does seem like a confidence issue with Gomez, and it can't have been easy for him what he's gone through in terms of injuries, in and out, and he's had a short spell there to maybe build a place in the team. And unfortunately, a couple of good appearances, a couple of shaky appearances isn't the standard that we require at the moment or what we need. And I think that's not just for him, it goes for a lot of players across the park, and that's obviously led to the position we're in, because consistency has been the biggest problem for us, as well as, injuries and stuff like that. Like, if you're not consistently performing, 10 out of 11 players, you can maybe carry one, but you can't carry 4 or 5. And it has felt like that's what we've been going through game after game, apart from the odd one here and there where everyone across the park has turned up, or the majority. It's always felt as though, you can pick a handful of players out who've done really well, but there's also another handful that you think, we done okay there. You wouldn't really be going home to write up rave reviews about them. And that sort of sums up where we are at the moment, really, in the season.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Gomez and other players like Gomez, if you like, is that if everyone was fit and firing, full of confidence, full of fitness, he wouldn't be in the 11, would he? That goes without saying. He would not be in the 11, and that's not a dig at him in any way whatsoever. That's a compliment to the players who would be. But that doesn't happen in football. Players get injured, players lose form, players need resting, because you end up with so many games because of people organising World Cups mid-season and things. So there's going to come a time when someone like Joe needs to get his boots on, if you like, and get on the pitch and do a job. And that, I think, is the hardest bit for someone like Klopp to sort of work out, because you pick your 11 and you maybe think of a few players that are going to be rotated in and out regularly. So if you look how many forwards we've got when everyone's fit, there's no way you're going to play all of our forwards. All of our 5 main, if you like, best paid forwards are not going to play every single game at the same time, because that would be interesting to watch. I'm not sure it would end well, but you never know. But you need to know that whoever you pick, and if you, in that case, you can rotate those 5 into 3 positions, if you like. If they're all fit and firing, you've got some good options there. You've got people to bring off the bench if someone's having a bad time, someone to bring off the bench to just change things up a bit, change systems, whatever. But you've got to know that they're reliable. And I think on the whole, the front 5 probably are. Those 5 players are probably good enough that you can do that with them. You'll get something out of them. I'm not sure how fixed we are at the back in that sense, but one position Joe Gomez can play, of course, is right back. And we were talking the other day on Raw about the idea of, given the problems we're having, and there's not just Joe who can play at right back, there's the young lad Calvin that just made a little cameo the other night. Could it actually be what everyone's been clamouring for years but we've been against? Could it be time to put Trent Alexander-Arnold into a more advanced position? Is it worth giving that a go?
Yeah. I don't see why not. It might benefit Trent, it might benefit the team, it might benefit whoever plays right back, be it Gordon Ramsay's kid or whether it is Joe Gomez. And, if Gordon Ramsay's lad is going to play the Cruyff turn game like we used to play with Adam Lallana, then, that's interesting. He's certainly not short of confidence or size and stature. I didn't think he was that big, to be fair to him. And I only seen it from standing on the KLOPP the other night. And don't know what he looked like on telly, but he looked like quite a physically imposing young lad.
Definitely.
But Trent's got so much ability on the ball, and I think you'd have to be living under the rock to not know that his defensive deficiencies have been highlighted even more than ever this season. And there's been a couple of moments I noticed in games that I've been to the last week. Crossfield balls over the top, he seems to lose track of quite easily. And I don't know whether it's a physical thing or whether it's a sort of mental concentration thing, but he just doesn't seem to track a ball very well over his head. And, when we played Napoli the night, the flying left winger that they've got there, who I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name because George attempted it in the ground, and the poor fella went coming off for Napoli, number 77, coming on for Napoli, and the whole KLOPP just held its breath for like a split second. We're going, go on, George, because we can't say it. Any chance of you, mate? And it was just not happening. So, we'll call him Kavicha because that's his first name. But, you can't allow good players in wide positions to get the ball at the feet, because they're only going to do one thing. They're going to go at you or cause you problems one way or another. And I think it's an issue that he needs to work on, and hopefully he doesn't go to the World Cup, because England aren't going to play him anyway because that clown won't play him. But he can work on things. He can have a bit of time off. He can sort himself out one way or the other. But pushing him further forward, his ability on the ball is obviously his strength, and I don't think, other than Kevin De Bruyne, nobody delivers a ball potentially as dangerous as he can into a box in the Premier League. So given what we've got up top now in Darwin Núñez and obviously Mo Salah in a more central position, it wouldn't be a bad thing to, be allowing to Trent to play further up and give them lads opportunities, because the faster you can get the ball out your feet and into the box, if he's obviously more advanced up the pitch, would give them the advantage over defenders, because the one thing that those two lads up top have got is really intelligent movements. That's one of the big things that impressed me with Darwin Núñez, amongst other things, is his movements off the ball and his anticipation and his willingness to run in behind and cause chaos. That's like we've nicknamed our WhatsApp group the Crazy Horse, because he was dubbed a bit of a donkey at the beginning, and he's no longer a donkey. He's now a horse, and he's starting to find his feet, and he's a bit crazy. So that's his new nickname. He's obviously not on the Crazy Horse of yesteryear.
I was just going to say, yeah,
that's a different topic altogether. But I'm sure we can develop him from maybe a crazy horse to a crazy champion. But it wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think, to allow someone of his ability on the ball, and if it makes us a little bit more defensively solid as well, that wouldn't be a bad thing, because we haven't had many clean sheets in recent times. I think the Napoli one midweek, but conceding to Forest, conceding to Leeds, we had a couple before that. But it's something that it gives you a solid base to build off. And Van Dijk has spoken with Gary Neville this week, and if anyone's seen that, it is quite interesting, because he's quite a personal guy and you don't see much of him, but he does pride himself on clean sheets. And if you can be of that good of ability and you're not getting clean sheets, it must be frustrating, and I'm sure he wants to keep the board than anyone else, really.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not just goalkeepers. Like, goalkeepers obviously go for that Golden Gloves award, the most clean sheets in a season, but someone like Van Dijk, you can imagine, feels just the same way. He doesn't want the award necessarily for it. He just wants to know that he had so many clean sheets that season that he was part of. And I think that's the kind of competitiveness that decent players have, that it's not just about winning, it's about winning well, it's about keeping that clean sheet, and it's about doing everything you can to make sure that's the case. And you see him gutted time and time again when we do let things slip, and sometimes it's even maybe a slip of his own. He's not infallible as we used to think he maybe was. He's still human, just about, so he does make mistakes occasionally. That's what happens. But it would be good to kind of see, like, I think the other aspect of this is that teams are sort of playing differently against us lately, or they seem to be, that they've seemed to have sort of worked out some ways to get at us and pressing us like mad is working for them, because we're seemingly not as fit as we were. I do wonder now whether we should sort of sometimes play a little bit more sort of on the counter, because loads of teams are coming at us now that used to defend, so maybe just be ready for that. But the thing about someone like Trent, to me, is the tracking back he could do if he was playing further forward. He knows, he would be the extra person to come and help out at the back, rather than the man that you're relying on at the back on that side of the pitch. So there's so much potential there with him, and I think something about, where do you play your best players? Well, you play them where they play best. So if Trent's best at right back, then you want to keep him there. But at the moment, there's enough question marks just to say, let's try something else. But yeah, I'm not sure. We need to try something else than what we did on Saturday. And I think rather than dwell on that miserable game against Leeds, let's sort of fast forward a few days. And it was only a couple of days later. We had a couple of days off, and then we're playing in the Champions League. And as much as it was sort of billed as a potential dead rubber, because the only way it mattered would be if Liverpool won by 4 goals, it was still, to me, it was played as if the match mattered. Both sides wanted to win. Maybe not quite to the sort of 100% putting your lives on the line kind of way that they would have done if it was winner goes through, loser goes out. But to me, both sides wanted to win that game. They wanted the pride, and we came out of it not only with a couple of goals, but with a clean sheet. And thanks to VAR perhaps, but you're not thanking VAR because VAR just got it right. But 2-0 after what happened at the weekend, that to me was a massive boost. But I'm sort of, I keep doing this lately with Liverpool. I'm sort of thinking, yes, so we are okay. We've remembered how to play and feeling really confident, but then feeling let down a few days later. Did we see enough, do you think, midweek to give us real hope for the future, or is it just a case of, we're playing a big team, we raised our games, and we've still got the same problems underneath? I don't know what to make of it. What do you?
I think before the game, I think we both said last week it was a free hit, an opportunity to rotate. But then when you probably look at our squad, the option for rotation probably not there in terms of quantity of numbers, unless you are delving into the academy, which I'm sure coming up to next week's fixture, Derby in the League Cup, will probably happen, because Champions League games also come with obviously the youth team play. I think it's under 19 level in the UEFA Youth League. Sorry for the mispronunciation there, but
that's the one that keeps confusing people, because you get goal updates from you, don't you, in the middle of the day, and you're like, Liverpool have gone ahead against Napoli. What the hell? What time is it? Oh right.
Yeah. They've steamed through that group. To be fair, the young kids have. I think put 5 past Napoli's young lads the other day, and there's a few standout names, performers, which we may see next week, which would be nice. But yeah, I think, Klopp said he was going to go strong, and eyebrows were raised, even from myself included, thinking, do we really need to? Because what if we get an injury like we did the other year with Jota when we played at Midtjylland, I think it was, like a needless game where there was nothing really on it. And when we lost a lad for a few months, and, it's an easy out in terms of, an excuse, or going into the weekend's fixture saying, we've got a couple of tired lads there because, we've played the midweek. It was sort of making a rod for our own back that we didn't need. But, Napoli came to play. They put out, I think, listening to Raw and the Scouser podcast earlier on in the week, what would be nominally 8 or 9 of their best 11. And I think we put out, apart from maybe 1 or 2 players, the best that we probably could either. And it did sort of feel a bit first half like, we weren't playing for a draw, but we weren't overexerting ourselves. We were sort of like chilling along in second gear. And I think had we got an early goal or 2, maybe the 4-0 might have sort of been on the cards, and we drove it home. But as it transpired, it wasn't. And, I think they spent more time on the floor than anything else. And, the old Italian trick, it worked. But as you said, clean sheet, a couple of goals. Darwood getting his first one at the Kop end. Positives to be taken. We're the second team to keep Napoli out all season. In terms of, not letting them score. The last time they'd done that was the end of August away at Fiorentina. Everyone else, they've conceded against Napoli. So, credit to be taken there for the Liverpool lads, especially those in defence. And, Kanate coming back, and I know we spoke on Gomez, but he's a monster of a man physically, but he gives us a lot more. He must have been watching Joe Matip compilations as well, because his Roman runs of field were a pleasure to see, because, again, it gives us an option, and not a dig on Gomez, but he's just not that type of guy to break out of defence and stride forward with the ball. But it commits players, it opens up the pitch, it allows, confusion to happen, and then movement of other players around him on his own, on Kanate's own team, obviously with us. That was what was missing. First half was a lack of movement, and when Nunes come on, obviously we've spoken about him before, but just his movements and his willingness to run and cause havoc was probably the catalyst we needed. And, I think their keeper needs a new set of gloves, because he certainly had his up and gloves on by the looks of it when he was trying to hold on to that ball from corners. How can you make the same mistake twice? It's criminal, really. I'm sure Spalletti's probably had a good old dig at him when he got back in the changing room, because it was literally carbon copy goals. He couldn't hold on to a headed corner, but we take it, and it was a nice confidence boost that we all needed, and it was good to walk away from a game that, going into the ground, it was sort of, well, we take what we can here. Like, if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. It's not the end of the world. We know we're going to finish second anyway, but coming away with it was a nice feeling, especially, considering what they did to us out in Naples.
Yeah, and I think I said this the other day. I can't remember. When you lose track of when you say things and you say them to, it gets like that sometimes with football stuff. And I just remember thinking, well, we're on like an unbeaten run now in the Champions League. So yeah, we lost that first game, but since then we've been winning them, and that is something that you take into the knockout stages. And if you can just keep that going, that feeling that we're unbeatable, as long as we put everything into it. As long as we don't sit there and think we're unbeatable and we don't actually have to do anything for that to be the case. If you sort of have that attitude, it's just something that you can build on. And by the time we do play in the Champions League, a lot of water will have gone under the bridge. It'll be, or over the tunnel, depending on how you want to look at it. It'll be, months. It's like middle of February or something. I think someone said Valentine's Day when the Champions League starts again. So there's loads going to be happening. Not just for us, though, of course, because of that stupid World Cup interruption, but it's something we can look forward to now. We've done that bit. We've got into the knockouts. Now we can get back to sorting out the league stuff, and hopefully, getting on a bit of a run that maybe in time gets us up into the Champions League places, because, we may not win the Champions League this season. Just in case we don't win the Champions League this season, you want to have that backup of being in the top four, because I would hate to be playing in the Europa League. I've forgotten how bad it was. Like, you're all right with it, aren't you, when you're in the Europa League? Like, you sort of like, this is all right, it's okay, bit of European football, better than what Everton are doing. But compared to the Champions League, it just feels so like, I don't know, home and bargain.
You can sort of give and take the Europa League. Like, Champions League night on Tuesday, obviously we were at home, so you're watching the game. And then Champions League football's on Wednesday, and you just, if there's nothing else on, you think, well, I'll throw it on. Yeah. And, it depends what you're interested in. I don't mind sometimes watching the BT goal show, so the cross between games when there's sort of goals flying or there's a bit of action.
Yeah.
And, you're not wholly engrossed in one game or another, because you might, you got no allegiance to either team. It is sort of easy to put on, but I certainly went thrown on the Europa League version and, crossing to the arse end of Romania and then flipping over to Latvia or Moldova or somewhere, wherever they were going last night. I weren't putting myself through that. But one thing that I would touch on really is the home form. In the Champions League, we've won, obviously, 3 games at home, conceded 1 to Ajax, 2 clean sheets to Rangers and Napoli. And, that everyone goes, Anfield on a European night, something special about it. Well, I know there's only 4 possibilities for us in the next round of the draw, but none of them teams are going to want to draw us regardless, because they're going to have to come to Anfield. And, the last 2 times we've played Real Madrid in the Champions League, it's been in a neutral venue in a final, and we've lost, on shady decisions, sort of like, the situation with Karius and, Mo Salah going off in the first one, and then last year's final, I don't even remember the game for obvious reasons of what went on outside. The game was a blur.
It didn't happen, that event. It's like a non-event, the game itself, after that.
So, they won't want to face us if they get their name drawn out against us next Monday. They don't want to face us, because they know coming to Anfield is a hell of a lot different than going to a shithole in Paris or, all the way out to Ukraine, which, sadly that isn't possible anymore, given the current climate. But they won't want us. And Porto, well, they know more than enough what it's like facing us in recent years. Benfica, well, they're flying in terms of what they're doing currently, but we've beat them. And then Bayern Munich, we faced them in recent times in the Champions League, and again, they're a really good side, but they won't want to come to Anfield and face us. So, just having that sort of on your record for people to look at, regardless of what we're doing domestically, isn't great. But, European football, as much as Real Madrid say it's their competition, it's also our competition. We are
Definitely
the one team in England that nobody wants, regardless of whatever else is happening.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, we say, I got asked the question the other day, who would have won in the next round, and I said a team that in the end didn't get to become one of our opponents because they didn't top the group. But I said Paris Saint-Germain because for all the money and everything else, I still think Liverpool can beat anyone on the day. Liverpool can beat anyone, and they just have to be on the day. They just have to have everything right and be ready to go and play that game the way it needs to be played and put everything into it. Even with some injuries and things, I still think we can do it. We've got that. When we're on it, we're so on it, you know, and we can beat anyone. And I thought it would have been nice to get Paris and beat them and sort of have a little bit of payback, not much, but a little bit of payback for what happened in Paris. You know, just a little tiny little bit. Doesn't go anywhere near making up for what happened over there, but it's just a little something just to kind of send a message back to them. So that would have been good. But as it is, we're not playing them. Maybe we've got them to come in a later round, though. You know, it could still happen. So could get that chance yet to just get back at them. And the only thing about it that I didn't think about at the time was that we'd have to play them at their place, and I really don't think many of our lot would want to risk going back to Paris again. And that, you know, it would be a serious question for people whether they should bother or not, because there's people who I know, maybe they're okay now, maybe they've had a bit of time to get used to it. There's a lot of people who it pretty much put them off going to the match, and a lot of cases because of what's happened previously, and then that bringing back all the memories and sort of putting for younger fans as well. I think what Paris did was it put reality into all those stories they've been told growing up. Like you've heard all the Hillsborough stories, but because of your age, you obviously weren't at Hillsborough, but you've heard the stories, and then being in a situation like that, it brings some reality that words can't bring, doesn't it?
I wouldn't go to France again.
Yeah,
like that's the feeling I have, and maybe in time them feelings will change, but right now there's nothing that could persuade me to go to France. And I know it's very stigmatised, and you're tarring the whole nation with one brush. But you know, Marseille treated the Tottenham fans midweek terribly.
Yeah.
They were banned them from part of the city. Like Lyon, I've done it when English clubs have gone there. You know, it's not just one area of France. It's systemically across. You know, their football culture, the way they handle foreign football fans, and especially those of an English nature. So there's nothing that could make me want to go to France for any reason. And I know quite a few people who do go away games, that they would rather go to away games than home games. And they were all saying, like, thank God Paris on in the next round potentially for us, because they wouldn't want to go, and they're lads who go all over Europe and have been to places like what you would perceive as much more potentially dangerous, or, you know, places that you've never been before, and you're opening your eyes to new parts of the world. We all thought Paris would be safe. We all thought it'd be fine, and it was far from it. So I wouldn't like to draw them on that regard, because I don't want to put fellow Liverpool fans through that trauma. You know, it probably would trigger PTSD for some people because of what they went through. It wouldn't be nice. So, you know, hopefully they get a tricky draw elsewhere, and someone else deals with them and puts them out. It's just one of them. I can't imagine, for those fans who went through Hillsborough and then went through that last year, it must be horrific, because, as you say, it will have triggered so many negative, awful memories that, you know, it wouldn't have been nice for anybody. And as you say, the younger fans now, it's not about understanding, but you've had to go through that, and you've probably, if anything, you've got, you know, a bit more of an emotional attachment because of what people went through with Hillsborough. It was a very similar situation in terms of mismanaged crowd control, really, and it's not a nice thing to have happened. You wouldn't wish it on anybody, and unfortunately, we've went through it a few times, really, as a club and as a fan base. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I think one of the things that gets you there's a lot of things that get to you, obviously, about it, but mistakes happen, and so if you're being really kind, people can make mistakes. This is being too kind to the people who caused Hillsborough, but if you're trying to just be kind for a second and say, okay, people can make mistakes and misjudgments, But what you do is you learn from them. When it's caused something so bad to happen, you look at yourself and you say, shit, I really screwed up here. I did the wrong thing, and other people around me did the wrong thing. We need to make sure this never happens again. But of course, the attitude at the time was, oh shit, we screwed up. We better not let anyone see. Let's cover up as much as we can. Let's try and change evidence. Let's do alcohol breathalyzer type tests. Let's check for alcohol levels in kids' blood and all sorts of stuff. Let's change the narrative and just turn it all on Liverpool fans. Let's see if we can get some Tory MPs to help us, and let's get onto a national newspaper like Murdoch and The Sun and Kelvin Mackenzie, see if they can help us put this narrative out there. And they did, and it succeeded. That version of events is what so many people believed and still believe to this day, I'm sure. And the thing is that if we'd have got the truth back then, we probably wouldn't have had things like happened in Paris, in my opinion, because there would have been a kind of worldwide clamour, if you like, for minimum standards of things that should be done, and that just wouldn't happen. And as Tony pointed out on the episode we did the other day, that the Manchester Arena bombing, you can't sort of, someone planted a bomb, right? That's going to happen. But as the investigation results, as the inquest results have shown this week from that, people died who wouldn't have done if the authorities had been more organised. But again, because people are just sort of happy to go along with this narrative about it was Liverpool fans who caused Hillsborough, people were drunk, people had no tickets, all of this shite, that is what gives the authorities the chance to kind of not bother fixing things. So sadly, I think what happened at Manchester wouldn't have happened wouldn't have had the same outcome if Hillsborough had been honestly reported and people had believed it. Yet today, when everyone's got the opportunity, we're still getting the dickheads coming to Anfield. And finally this week, the FA spoke out, kind of. And now apparently they've been ignoring letters from families, from family members who've lost loved ones at Hillsborough, families of the 97. They've just been completely blanking them when they've been getting in contact with them about this sort of stuff going on at the ground. But finally they put a statement out on social media saying they don't like it and it shouldn't happen, and that they praise people who try and stop it. But no real sort of indication of what they're actually going to do to stop it, what they're actually going to do to change it. And that was disappointing in some ways, but at least they're finally acknowledging something. It's a start. But really what the FA need to do now is put something in place that if you're coming out with that shite, that if you're going to a ground and doing that, you're not coming to the ground. If your fans are doing that, and you can argue it was just some of them, well, just some of them are going to get your fans banned from Anfield for 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. And the FA should be putting the support behind that. They shouldn't be allowing clubs to say, well, if you ban our fans, we're going to ban yours. No. If we ban your fans, it's because of what they did. And you need to put that right and make sure they don't keep doing it. And the more we do that, the better. But it just feels like at times you're just shouting at a wall. But it's getting noticed. But I mean, we went over it with Tony the other day. But finally, there's a sign that something's going to change. But and I suppose one of the best signs this week, though, was that, I mean, there's probably lots we can say about Leeds and stuff, but I really did like how they responded to the dickhead from Ireland who'd come over as a Leeds fan and was showing off with the Sun.
He got off lightly.
Yeah.
And that's being nice to him.
Yeah.
Because
we were saying it last week, weren't we? We were saying what would happen if people...
Yeah.
You know.
Like the unfortunate West Ham fan, which went a bit too far, but...
Yeah.
He's lucky in the sense that there'll be Liverpool fans that will come through Lime Street Station, and if anyone knows the demographic of Liverpool, I would set out the geography. Lime Street is literally city centre, where Liverpool, obviously the Anfield is a mile, 2.5 miles, I think, outside the city centre, going towards the north end. So if you are going to go to the match, and it's, you know, a half-hour walk or so from the ground, but the majority of people will make their own way to Anfield, whether it's via car or bus or taxi or whatever. I can't imagine there's a lot of, you know, people traffic that come through Lime Street, or if they do, they probably move on pretty quickly in the direction of the ground. So he's lucky in respect that weren't seen by more sort of Liverpool fans, and he didn't get a beating for it. There was a picture later on where he was found, or he was spotted in the round Anfield, but he was cowering behind stewards and police because, you know, he wouldn't have such the big bollocks then to be holding up that rag of a paper, and cowering for his life. And if Dundalk FC have got an ounce of gratitude about them, they'll do exactly what Leeds did and, you know, ban him. And he's going to get barraged with things because there's emails out there, and what Liverpool fans will do is they will find you and they will torture you via different ways that you obviously not physically, but they will send random things to your house. They'll be in touch with your employer. They'll be in touch with anything they can do to cause your life hell and havoc, because that's just what they do. Like, if we can't physically get our hands on you, we'll find another way to get our hands on you one way or another.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wouldn't even wish the best of luck, and just say, like, you brought this on yourself, soft lad.
Yeah, and hopefully some people are going to look on and learn from it as well.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And this needs to happen, and we finally got the attention of like TalkSport for some bizarre reason, because, you know, of all the radio stations and, you know, the Murdoch-controlled media empire, Simon Jordan, again, I bring him up all the time on this podcast because he says so much. Eventually, he's going to get one thing that you agree with. Yeah,
it's like a broken clock, isn't he?
Yeah, it will eventually be right twice a day, this lad. But he was absolutely spot on in what he said this week. I've seen a few clips around social media that, you know, what is going on is unacceptable. And yeah, I totally agree. I think we've spoken it before, that potentially the only way to sort it is ban fans from coming to Anfield, and it may then lead to some sort of self-policing amongst fan bases, because the FA don't seem arsed, like you said.
Yeah.
Half-hearted apology, pretty much, you know, along the Man City lines of, oh, I didn't see it, Gov, but it was there. Oh, sorry about that. We hold our hands up, but we'll all move on. No, we won't. And if the FA aren't going to have to, you know, the whereabouts to do anything about it, then we're going to have to try and do it ourselves, because we've climbed a hill and we'll do it again and we'll do it again. But if fans are banned from coming to Anfield, you would like to think and hope that self-policing amongst away fans, because the majority of away fans travel regularly together, you know, they all sort of know each other one way or another, and they mingle around all over the country, and credit to those who spend the time and money to do it. If you're banned from coming to Anfield, a lot of people, a lot of clubs, you know, it's an iconic ground to come to for many reasons. If you're not allowed to come, and then when you are allowed again in maybe a couple of years' time, and somebody tries to speak in an out-of-tone manner and get such vile chants started, then you'd like to hope that people within that fan base are like, hey, that's enough. We've not been here for 2 years and we don't want to have it again. So shut your mouth, get on with like supporting your own team, and we will be back next year. Otherwise, we just keep continuing the same thing, because we don't need them there. Like,
no,
there's a lot of fans who would love to go to the ground, and if the 3,000 extra seats, or maybe 3,500, 4,000 once the Anfield Road is extended, if they're not being given to away fans, and they can be given to local school children, you know, people who really want to go to the game from wherever you are in the world, Liverpool fans will lap it up. There will be a queue round Anfield 4 or 5 times over for those tickets, and it wouldn't be a problem. So if that's what it takes, then, you know, maybe that's what it takes, but it can't continue. And I hate to bring it up every week, but we do, because it's getting worse and worse every week. And
it's the thing, isn't it? It's every week now. It's not an isolated incident.
It's not a one-off anymore. It's like, you know, we got this weekend Spurs. Like, I don't know whether you'll get any sort of that from Spurs. You may do, you may not. I don't know.
Of all the teams who shouldn't be doing it though, it's Spurs, because they went through similar shit before we did, and when they were very lucky, if that's the right word, fortunate. I don't know, just the gods were shining down on them or whatever, that they didn't have something similar happen to them before it happened to us, because that's what that stadium was like. It was disgustingly bad. Should never have been allowed, and the FA should have dealt with it and should have been wringing their hands in sorrow afterwards about it as well when it happened, instead of just trying to pretend it wasn't their fault. So they've got a lot of work to do to try and pay back what they did all those years ago. A lot of them have. And I think just quickly as well, the broadcasters, I said this on Twitter the other day, you watch the match, there's a bit of foul language, like one of the managers loses it, one of the players says what he thinks, Mike picks it up, might be even some chanting with some swearing in, and it's, "Oh, and we're sorry if you heard some choice language just then. We do apologise." That's sometimes what it's like as a football game, is the kind of thing you hear, but you instantly get an apology, so that off come out on the backs. Why aren't they apologising? Because they're forever broadcasting stuff, mocking the families of the victims of a horrific disaster. So there should be apologies for that, instead of pretending it's not happening. And more of the broadcasters need to do that. And if we start educating people, telling them why it's wrong, it's going to go away. I mean, I think with racism, we don't hear racist chanting like we used to do. And is that because people start being racist, or is it because people, in some cases, got to realise why it is wrong to be racist and chant like that, and in other cases, maybe still are racist, but have realised that the consequences are too great if they actually make it too obvious that they are. So it went away in terms of people having to go through it, and it is traumatic what people have to go through. But talking of Spurs,
quickly on that one, sorry. The whole hoorah around the Chelsea Chelsea, how much was made of that?
Yeah,
and this is just brushed under the carpet. It doesn't surprise us, but it's frustrating because it carries on happening and it's getting worse. And if that Chelsea chant can be, deemed unacceptable, and I don't know if there was some sort of, charge that could be labelled towards fans, or, and it's deemed an offence, then this is an offence as well.
Yeah, there is something with the FA about
should it be heard with face of ban, or no fans allowed, or whatever it is. But if that comes under some sort of jurisdiction that we can face a punishment for it, exactly the same should be happening with Hillsborough stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? It wouldn't hurt the FA to rewrite the rules, the laws, the regulations, and just put that in. Wouldn't hurt them whatsoever. And if anyone objected to it, you'd have to ask yourself why they were involved in the game of football anyway, if that's what if they objected to it. There's always freedom of speech, dickheads, who come along and say you should be able to upset anyone however you like, but, they are dickheads, so why listen to them? I'm not totally against freedom of speech, by the way, just the people who hide behind it to do some insults. But thinking of Spurs, we've got them next, and, well, it's impossible to predict how Liverpool are going to play, but Klopp's mentioned Henderson's back, but Milner won't be because of concussion. And I think I've not had a chance to watch the whole press conference, but just reading some of the quotes. One of them was that about Darwin, that he's a real threat in finishing situations, involved in everything, always an option to pass and cross to, involved in both goals on Tuesday, so he's making big steps. So, and I think, there's not a lot Klopp could say, really, is there, about what's happened and what's going to happen. It's kind of, it's been this season just been the way it has, hasn't it?
Yeah, and along the lines of what you'd expect, you wouldn't be surprised if we go there and turn them over. I know they're missing a few players, but so are we. So it's not an excuse. But Conte will roll it out anyway because he likes a good whinge.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Spurs are one of these, the whole term Spursy, it is just a way to sum up. You don't really know what you're going to get, what's going to happen. But, Sunday afternoon, we spoke about the games under the lights and stuff. This time of year, the clocks have gone back last week, so it'll be under the lights. I've not been to that stadium, but from all, people who have been, it's a great stadium, and it can get loud and lively. But hopefully, we silence them for the right reasons. And it's a big game. And one thing we have done this season is we've raised our level to the opposition, or in the case of Forest and Leeds, we've dropped our level. to the opposition. So you'd like to think, Spurs are nominal, bigger team in the league, obviously above us in the league. It would raise, the motivation and the drive within the lads to go on there and put a show on. And given what the result was in midweek against arguably the most informed side in Europe, it shouldn't be, an easy out for players to say, well, we're not up for this one, because all the ingredients are there, like they were for Leeds last week. We said it, but I'd have fancy us to go there and get something this week.
Yeah, I mean, Klopp said, he said, one of the things he said, he's never thought, now's a good time to face Tottenham, so he knows it's going to be tough. He says that Liverpool have got to fight through this. You can't play through it. You've got to fight through it, and that word "fight" is one that is music to my ears, because that's what we should be doing. We should be fighting against these teams and in all honesty, I've said this before, you should be able to get up for a game against Forest or Leeds or Wolves or whoever, but if you can't get up for a game against Tottenham in the situation we're in, then you shouldn't be playing for us. He's also said Fab was looking better in the week, sign of us getting back to his old ways, which is nice to see as well. And I think it's promising. But also Klopp, what he's also been doing this week is he went and got himself the freedom of the city, didn't he?
He did, and while we've been speaking, I've been doing a little bit of research, and unfortunately, you won't be seeing him parade his sheep down Dale Street, down all the pubs while he's having a few pints, and you won't be seeing him allowing his sheep to graze in Sefton Park, because he's not also allowed to do that. This day and age, it's more seen as an honorary sort of privilege, and he's actually only the second foreign person to receive that honour of the freedom of the city of Liverpool, after one Nelson Mandela. So contrasting sort of lifestyle and livelihoods in terms of how they've received that honour, but
both people who the Tories didn't like. I know Margaret Thatcher hated Nelson Mandela, from what everyone says at the time, and so Tories won't like Klopp. So yeah, that's
yeah.
But other than that, there's not much else in common, I suppose.
They made the people happy, which is an old Liverpool quote. But I think even if you are of the blue persuasion, you probably, if you sit them down on their own and they're not blinded by all the other idiots around them, because a lot of them can be quite level-headed when you get them on their own, they would say he's been good for you, and he has. He's brought a lot to the city. He's revitalised Liverpool as a club. But you've only got to look at the scenes of the parades that we've had, and when you delve deeper into little things like independent market traders, people who've got stalls around the city selling Liverpool merchandise, stuff like that. It's giving people, opportunity to make money, an opportunity for the livelihood. There's themed bars around the city. There's all sorts. He has benefited the city in a huge way, and even if you are blue tinted glasses, you would probably deep down admit, I actually love him as our gaffer. But as it is, he's ours. He's not beyond question, which a few people have done over recent weeks, and that comes with the trade of the job. But he can stop them questions if he answers them with points on the pitch.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's so easy to kind of sort of think, Liverpool are losing, they're not doing very well, they're not very confident, right, get a new manager. That sort of attitude is the kind of Chelsea attitude, and that's never been Liverpool's attitude. It's never been the Liverpool way, which is a phrase that sometimes gets misused, but it's never been the Liverpool way. We give people time, we look at what's going wrong, what's the bigger picture, what else is happening, what else can we change. It's not just a case of sacking the manager and thinking everything will be fixed. And more often than not, when clubs start to do that, they start to struggle. I mean, Manchester United are a prime example that they just assumed changing the manager would help them. Although they probably did hang on to Solskjaer longer than they should have done. But, we'd have liked them to hang on even longer, but never mind. He's made a massive difference to Liverpool. And I think Rafa did the same when he was here, and until all the ownership stuff kind of kicked off and it all turned very nasty, and there was people briefing against people and all the other nasty stuff that went on around then. But Klopp's kind of brought us all back together, I think, and made sure we're all back together. And you're right. Evertonians do kind of praise him. I've even had Manx praising him quietly, but like you say, when there's no one else listening, and they're sort of more confiding in you, aren't they? Really, than sort of boasting about it. But yeah, they can see the difference he made, and it's right that he gets given an honour like that because he's an honorary Scouser. He's got the attitude of a Scouser, hasn't he? He knows what's right and what's wrong, and he's humble with it as well. And he's got a sense of humour that a lot of people just don't get.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have handpicked a man better to come in and manage our club. It's so easy to say, like, you understand people from Liverpool, you understand Scouts. If you're not from Liverpool, you say, like, oh, I understand where you're coming from. But you probably don't unless you live in and around a city. Like, we do live in our own little bubble, in the nicest way possible, because we are so different to so many other people around the world. And the one thing that we've got is a uniqueness about us, and that is Klopp. He is unique. There's probably imitations of other managers around the world who want to be like him, but there's nobody like him. And I think that is probably one of the biggest compliments I could give him, is he gets us and we get him. And, managers of yesteryear, we've had very, very good ones. We've had a couple of shady ones and a couple that we don't ever speak of again. But to go down with, like, the legends that are on the flag of, like, Shankly, Paisley, Rafa, Kenny, Klopp, like, they're the names you reel off because they've done things for us that you'll never see again, unless you get another one of these great men in charge. So, for me, he made the dream come true and see us lift the league. And for me, he'll always be one of the best because it's what I've seen in my lifetime. And there's managers of yesteryear that others have seen will say, well, he's very close to them. And again, that's another highest compliment that you can give him, is if you mention within the same breath of the great men who built this club, then there's not much more you can do.
No, and he's sort of come along here and he's just completely integrated himself into the city and into the way of life and with the people, and become like a man of the people, which is what Bill Shankly did. Bill Shankly, Scottish, obviously Huddersfield before us, and moved across the Pennines and just lived the rest of his life in Liverpool. Bob Paisley from the Northeast, instantly came, well, not instantly, but was over here for years. But again, he despite the accent, he would have looked out of place anywhere other than in Liverpool. And of course, Kenny was another example of that. He's still at Liverpool. He still lives in the area. He's still, such an important icon for people, certainly of my generation. And I think Klopp's doing the same. And obviously, in between them, we've had say Joe Fagan and Ronnie Moran involved, who weren't from far afield, who were local. But again, that was all part of the overall setup and everything, wasn't it? And the way things worked. It's
even Agent Rafa still lives around.
He does. He still lives over on Coldy, doesn't he? And,
yeah, Agent Rafa. He took the job. He took the money. He nearly took them down. But he'll always be in part of the city. He'll always be welcome.
He will, and that's the thing. I mean, as well. Things were difficult with Rafa towards the end, and it wasn't. In my view, it wasn't of his own doing. Most of it, odd bits maybe, but the situation he was was doing far more than a football manager should be doing in terms of what he had to do. There was too much other stuff going on, and I'm sure that will be something we do on future podcasts, especially now Tony's doing some with us as well. But he wanted to win, and that's what he does. He wants to win, but he wants to do it for the fans. And he said this over and over again. And I know this. I know, speaking to him when there aren't cameras and microphones rolling, and just listening to him and listening to people who know him as well when he's just relaxed. That's what he wanted more than anything, was to make fans happy. That's why he did it. That was because you paid your money as a manager. Whatever deal you get to be a manager, you paid that, and you might get bonuses for winning things. Well, that's not why you want to win. That's not what's in you. It's the competitiveness and all the rest of it, and wanting to make people happy. And I think Klopp's the same. I think, I don't think they needed to incentivise his pay in his contract, because he tried just as hard whether he got an extra penny for it or an extra million for it. And there's not many in football you can say that about. And I think that as well is something that makes him fit so well with us.
Yeah, it's in this current climate, like everything that's going on in this country is a mess. But like it's not about how much money you've got in the bank. It's not about the flash car you drive or the nice clothes you might wear. As long as you're happy and as long as those around you are happy, like your family and your friends, you're pretty much okay. And that's just the mentality we live. There will be people who like the finer things in life, but I think the general consensus of people in and around Liverpool is if you're quite happy and those around you are happy and having a good time, then it's all good. Money can't be everything. Having nice shiny things isn't the be all and end all. Having a good time is, and having smiles on your face, you can't put a price on that.
No, you can't. And as I always said, football is the thing that distracts you from real life, and lots of things in real life are shitty at the minute. So let's hope that what we saw against Napoli in midweek, is the start of Liverpool just getting back to their old ways, the swagger back, the unbeatability back, just the general stuff that Liverpool do that makes us smile, because I've smiled so many times since Klopp came to Anfield. But I suppose we better stop now, because we could talk forever, but I suppose we better stop. So until next time, thanks for listening, and next time, hopefully, we'll be in as good a mood as we were today, because we'll have just seen a good win. But if not, you know what? We'll have plenty to talk about and plenty to say. But again, thanks for listening. Hope you do catch our other podcast as well that we did with Tony Evans earlier in the week. It's good to have him on board. Another set of views about what life's like as a Liverpool fan. And he's got a load of really, really interesting views. And I think I like his idea of giving everyone a few pints before they go in. And, if you don't drink, just try and go in as if you've had a few pints. Be happy, get going. And whether you're watching it on the TV or watching it in the ground, just always enjoy the game. And if you go in with that attitude, maybe we won't have games that are impossible to enjoy like we've had recently. But again, thanks for listening, and we will see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.